Hey, it's Juck.
I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback.
The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those.
You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
That means we've got. And welcome into Juck on Bucks on a Tuesday morning. Appreciate you all so much. Sorry for my tardiness. We have been working on the internet issues I've been having, and I think, fingers crossed, this is a big test today that we've got things figured out. I think so. We'll give her a go and see how we go. But I think that we got things going, and a special thanks to my good buddy for helping us get that done. But good morning to everybody. Really enjoying the new live format. We've been going live every day at 9:30. It's been a whole lot of fun. I'm enjoying interacting with the chat, and good morning to all of you. Nate, Kyle, Woody, Steve from Kentucky. Good to see you. We got a Kentucky Buck in the house. Good morning, Emily. Appreciate you guys all so much. And if you are watching live, what's up, Cody? I encourage you to hop in the chat. We try to interact with that chat a whole lot throughout the show, and definitely at the end, I usually pull up and talk to the chat for a little while before I log off. But a couple of pieces of Buckeye news to get to. We have got, obviously, the Iowa game coming up this Saturday, and that's going to be at 3:30 on CBS. Buckeyes confirmed they definitely will be wearing their grays. There was some speculation that they might be wearing their black uniforms. That's not going to be happening. Going to be the grays for Iowa. And on the call is going to be their number one crew, of course, Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson. And I've talked about this before, but I absolutely love that Gary Danielson, who has been calling the SEC on CBS for like the last 15 years and hating on the Big Ten the entire time, is now stuck for the rest of his career calling the Big Ten games. The downside is we got to listen to Gary Danielson, and he has really lost his fastball. Used to be pretty good. It's not been so good of late. The following Saturday, we have now gotten, there's been a lot of speculation about the Oregon game, what time the game is going to be. A lot of people thought big noon, but that doesn't make any sense because Oregon's on the West Coast. That'd be 9 a.m. for them. It's going to be a primetime game for us here on the East Coast. So 4:30 for them out in Oregon, and that is going to be an NBC Sports game. And I'm hoping that it's a dark, gloomy day, and it gets dark relatively early, so that second half will be nice and black with the lights. Oregon is blacking out the stadium. All the crowd's going to be wearing black. They're going to be wearing their all-black uniforms. I would love to see the Buckeyes counter with the white pants. Get the white pants back out. We haven't seen those in a while. I think that would be really cool. The announcing crew for them is Noah Eagle, so Ian Eagle's son, and Todd Blackledge. Canton's own Todd Blackledge. He is a former Penn State quarterback. He is a color analyst who I have always thought has been really good. I've always enjoyed him. And Ian Eagle, you know, there's a lot of nepotism in that field. And I think that Ian Eagle, as far as those Nepo hires go, is pretty darn good, to be honest. The grays aren't too bad, but can't stand the black, says Sage. And Sage and I are on an island here. I don't like the blacks either. I think most people absolutely love the blacks. I think that I wouldn't mind seeing the black jersey mixed in with the regular uniform, the regular helmet, the regular pants. But I don't like I don't really like the helmet. And I got the helmet sitting here behind me. I don't know why. I just don't like the helmet. It feels generic to me. But some interesting news, the S&P Plus. So Bill Connolly does the S&P Plus. It's been a very respected kind of metric for ranking teams for a whole lot of years now. And the S&P Plus heading into week 5 had Ohio State as the overall number 2 team, number 11 offense, and number 1 defense. And after week 5, Ohio State moved up to number 1, the best team in college football, with the 9th ranked offense and the number 2 ranked defense. How did that happen? With Alabama, Dustin, Georgia. Alabama and Georgia actually both dropped down because the model sees their defensive performances as very subpar. So not great offense, great defense, or not great offense, very poor defense for both of those teams. According to the S&P model, I'm going to run with it. I've been really confident about these Buckeyes. all off season. I believe they're the best team in college football. I still believe that. I love what we're seeing out of the offense. I think that what they're doing is highly repeatable, and I think it can be successful against anybody. There's definitely a couple of tweaks I'd like to see, but all in all, we haven't seen much out of them. But the creativity so far that we've seen, the running game, it just looks fantastic. There are a couple of guys who aren't playing great, but all in all, just been a fantastic performance so far by our Buckeye offense. I definitely did not think any of my concerns this year would be coming on the defensive side of the ball. I was so bullish on this defense being just absolutely shut down. And I really didn't think that early on, the first 4 games of the season, the Marshall and the Michigan State game, we would have any concerns. And, conventional wisdom was for a lot of us around here that this could be, as far as past Buckeye defenses, a generational defense. And it still could be. I think it still might be. But they definitely have some things that they need to tighten up. And I would definitely love to hear from Jim Knowles. And we have talked about the press conference system, the way they're doing it this year. So in the past, every Tuesday, we would hear from Ryan Day, offensive and defensive coordinator. And this year, they came out and said they're only going to give us one coordinator every week, and it's going to rotate. That's something new this year. And last week, we had Jim Knowles. That means this week it will be Chip's turn today at 11 at the press conference. But everybody wants to hear from Jim Knowles. Well, the media requested that they speak to Jim Knowles. And last week they requested on Wednesday to talk to Larry Johnson. They didn't get him. Apparently, the request has been answered for Jim Knowles today. And at 11, we are going to get to hear from Jim Knowles. And props to Ohio State for, giving the media who they want to talk to. I think that's awesome. They usually, I don't know. I didn't have much hope when I heard that this request went out, but they're going to get to talk to Jim Knowles. What would you ask Jim Knowles if you had a question? Hey, Mello, what's up? Mello said the S&P actually the most accurate model out. I've always felt that way myself as well. So, really nice to see that they value what the Buckeyes have done. And that is obviously opponent adjusted. So, there are a lot of these things when we talk about things we've heard about the Buckeyes. So talk about points per game. Like, that's not opponent adjusted. You know what I mean? Yes, they're giving up only 7 some points a game, but you played 3 really lousy teams in there as well. So that's not opponent adjusted. The S&P opponent adjusted, and Buckeyes number 1. So what would you ask Tim May? What would you ask Jim Knowles? I got Tim May on the brain because so there's like a rule there. You're allowed to ask one question, and then you can get away with a follow-up in those press conferences. And Tim May will ask like 3 totally totally different questions. And it really irritates the hell out of all the other beat writers, which makes me laugh. But I've got a couple that I would ask Jim. And I think that I would focus on the adjustments. So the adjustments against Marshall, Jim Knowles came out and said that he wishes he would have adjusted faster. And then in the Michigan State game, we saw in the second quarter 5 explosive plays from Michigan State. The Buckeyes defense only gave up 7 explosive plays on the game. Do you think you could have adjusted faster against Michigan State? What's holding you back from adjusting faster, I guess, is what I want to know. I would also like to ask, CJ Hicks is clearly ahead of Gabe Powers on the depth chart. How close is that between the two of them? So I think I would like to see a little more Gabe Powers in some more crunch time. In addition, does he think that matching up 12 personnel with our 3 linebacker set is still more advantageous than just keeping Jordan Hancock on the field? I don't think that it is myself. I did think that it was heading into the season, but that's when I thought that these linebackers were going to be playing really, really good. I thought that CJ Hicks was going to burst onto the scene. I thought that Sonny was going to pick this up really quick. That's not happened yet. So I'd probably like to see that kind of change and leave Hancock on the field myself. I'd also like to ask about Jermaine Matthews. Does he think maybe Jermaine Matthews might be earning maybe some more matchup specific snaps. For teams that run the ball a lot, IGB's great in run support, a really good tackler. Jermaine, not such a great tackler, but boy, in coverage, he is fantastic. He is absolutely fantastic in coverage. And I think Jermaine Matthews might be earning himself some more snaps based on IGB. Look, he didn't have his best game. That's for sure. He was the absolute lowest rated defender on the team. And I think that Rod says, I need to hear Zach break down why teams have been attacking IGB all season. Ed thinks Tim May is mediocre on his best day. Tim has got a great personality, man. He's got a great personality. I do enjoy hearing him. We got some Big Ten awards to go over, guys. So the Big Ten offensive, defensive, and specialist of the week, as well as the freshman of the week. But we already know who the freshman of the week is. So they came out yesterday, and there are co-offensive players of the week. Michigan running back Khalil Mullings carried the ball 24 times for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he won the co-offensive player of the week, along with Tez Johnson from Oregon. Tez had 11 receptions, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I find Mullings' line to be pretty weak for a team that carries the ball like they do. 24 for 111 and 2 touchdowns seems really pedestrian to me. Tez Johnson with 11 receptions for 121. You know, that's not even a fantastic line either. Those are both of them. It's really low yards per catch and yards per rush. But Tez Johnson this season with 33 catches, 311 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Also, that punt return against Boise State that really, if he doesn't return that, and it was a sick punt return, if he doesn't return that puppy back, I think Oregon loses to Boise State. He won the specialist of the week for that particular performance, and he should have. On defense, Penn State's Abdul Carter had a beast of a game against Illinois. Penn State won that one 21-7. Abdul Carter recorded 2 of Penn State's 7 sacks against Illinois. One of those, he had a strip, and that strip led to the touchdown that the defense got for them. 4 tackles for loss, a pass breakup. Abdul Carter was a linebacker who was a dynamic athlete, but not a great linebacker. And Penn State moved him down to defensive end, and now he's absolutely tearing things up. If that sounds familiar, something we've all talked about with a couple of guys on our team. But, you know, not everybody can be an edge. You got plenty of edges. But in the future, as we look forward to next year, you know, you're starting to get a little light. So maybe it does make sense to start to work with some of the guys on that. I don't know. But either way, if you were to move CJ, and there's a lot of people talking about Sonny down to the edge, you've now got some holes at linebacker that maybe you can fill out of the portal. I don't know, man. I don't know. There's a lot there. Specialist of the week, Dominic Svada, Michigan's kicker. He made a 35 and a 53-yard field goal. He has 4 50-yard field goals, including a 55-yarder this year. That's impressive, and that is definitely a weapon when you play the style of football that Michigan plays. That's really a huge advantage to have a guy who can hit 50-yarders. I can't remember the last time the Buckeyes have hit a 50-yard field goal. Does anybody have that stat? I'd love to hear if anybody's heard that. I feel like we've heard that recently. Oh, Davis Igbinoza can get handsy and get penalized. There's no doubt about that. But I love the aggressiveness that he plays with. Like, seriously. The guy plays corner, you know, like a safety. And I really like that. By the way, yesterday in the chat, somebody told me that Michigan was an underdog against Washington. And I thought that they were incorrect because I just couldn't figure that happening. I've been talking for a long time about that game as maybe a sneaky, tough game for Michigan. Heading up there, you know, that's a long way to travel. That's a really tough place to play when that crowd's into it. And I just assumed that they would definitely be into it. The rematch from last year's national championship game, that stadium gets rocking. I mean, it shakes. It's an awesome setting. It's one of my favorites in college football, to be honest. And it's beautiful. But I thought that would be a sneaky tough game. And this Michigan team obviously looks very beatable. So I was thinking that Michigan would be favored, but a sneaky tough game. It turns out whoever said that to me yesterday was absolutely right. Michigan is a 2.5-point underdog heading up to Washington. We're talking about the number 10 ranked team in the country going against a team that is 3-2, who most people have in their power rankings as roughly the 10th best team in the Big Ten. And that is wild. It's absolutely wild. I think that I would probably go Michigan if I haven't really looked into the game yet, but I would probably go Michigan and take that 2.5 points. But one heck of a week last week on our picks. We went here at JUCK on Bucks 10-6 on our picks for the week, 20-16 so far on the year. So we'll take that. Winners included Rutgers, Kentucky, Minnesota, Indiana, Colorado, Ohio State, Alabama, and Illinois. Big losers, Oklahoma State, Wisconsin, Louisville, Auburn should have won that game, Miami, and Utah. And I've got my updated Big Ten power rankings. Number 1, far and away, Ohio State, a tier by themselves, by far. Number 2, Penn State. That defense is starting to look scary, and now we've seen Penn State have dominant performances to win games on both sides of the ball. Can they put it all together in one game? If they do against Ohio State, that could be a really tough game. Number 3, Oregon. I think they've looked much better in their last 2 games, going to Oregon State, then a bye week, then going to UCLA, which was damn near a home game, to be quite honest. They're not quite clicking on all cylinders. I feel like they've got some more. And if they get that together in 2 weeks' time, that'll be a really tough game for the Buckeyes out there. Number 4, USC. I think they're pretty close to Oregon, but this was a pretty tough call, really, between who I'd put at 3, between USC and Oregon for me. USC has periods where they look really, really good, and then periods where they don't. Can they put it all together as we get towards the end of the year? Number 5, Michigan. I think they're the 5th best team in the Big Ten, but just like USC and Oregon, they're kind of in a tier with 5, 6, and 7 to me. And I just feel like this is a bit of a cluster here with who the heck do I got below them? 5, 6, and 7. Indiana, I feel like is right with Michigan. They actually play each other, and Nebraska. So Michigan, Indiana, Nebraska, to me, I can't decipher between the 3 of them who I really want to be, next on that list. Nebraska, I feel like we've kind of just forgotten about after they lost to Illinois. Nebraska's really cooking. I think they can, they're still young. They got some receivers. Rayola's really good. If they can kind of pick things up, and Rayola can keep cutting down on the mistakes, we're going to see them make some noise still. Iowa's my number 8 team. They got a good running game. They throw the ball a little bit better than before. A good defense. It's not as good as last year, though. It's definitely not as good as last year. And as I've been checking them out this week, because we got them this Saturday, I'm less impressed than I thought I would be with Iowa. And it's a 24-point line, so the same as Michigan State. I was thinking that they were going to get a little more respect than that. They have not. And number 9, I've got Washington. Number 10, Rutgers. Rutgers obviously beat Washington, but Washington outplayed them by quite a bit. And Rutgers has won their last 2 games. But they have they've figured out a way to win. Props to them. They're now 4-0, and that's awesome. But they've not really impressed me at all. What are you guys thinking? Anybody's got any? Okay, Terry says Indiana versus Nebraska and Michigan are going to be really interesting. Can you imagine if Indiana gives Michigan a game? That would be so funny. Chris says Sonny looks lost at linebacker, but he's leading the team in tackles. I mean, yeah, leading the team in tackles is kind of just what you do, playing that position. Ball's right around you all the time. Chris says, as much as I hate Michigan, they did beat USC. They did. They should not have, but they did. Rod says Zach's film breakdown are by far the best. I really enjoy them. I watched yesterday. Couple of takeaways. Caden McDonald is just, he's obviously popping on the TV copy, but man, when watching that film, he's just absolutely dominating his man every single time he's on the field. I don't know how you play anybody ahead of him outside of the starters, really. He's clearly the future of the big guys in the middle. And a couple of guys that didn't play their best game. Ty Hamilton did not play his best. He just doesn't seem to play great when he's not playing next to Tyleek. Carnell Tate, we've been praising Carnell Tate for his downfield blocking all year, for putting in all the extra effort. He did not have that same kind of performance against Michigan State. Austin Siereveld, who's had his ups and downs. Austin started games 1 and 2, and then he's now split snaps games 3 and 4. All 4 games, Austin Siereveld has improved. Tegra, he's been steady. I don't think he's improved, but he's been steady up and down. They both look starter quality. I feel really confident about both of them next year, which is awesome to be able to get both of them this experience. But I don't know if we don't end up seeing Siereveld taking the bulk of those snaps at right guard, or at some point them eventually going just to Siereveld as the right guard. And Josh Fryer is someone that all spring. So he wins the Iron Buckeye in spring, wins it again in preseason. I'm really excited for him. Like, what can he do? He can only do the best he can do. The Buckeyes did not have any opportunity to really replace him in the portal. There just weren't any options to replace him. Anybody that would be a plug and play upgrade from Josh Fryer. So there was no option other than to try to work with Josh and make him the absolute best that they could. And I made some excuses for him against Akron, against Marshall. He was going up against their best guy on defense, and he wasn't at Michigan State. And he just, it's going to be a roller coaster again. I just think it's going to be a roller coaster again. The guy's done his best. He's done everything he can, and props to him. I'm really rooting for him. But I think that we're going to have some games where we come out of the games and we're just, really upset with the performance on the right side of that line. So we shall see. He seems to just be limited physically. And, you're going to have that. Mello says, shout out to Kirby for not offering Caden McDonald. Such a brilliant strategy. And Caden McDonald from Georgia, from Gwinnett County, Yankeeville, as they call it down there. And Kirby did not offer Caden McDonald because he doesn't fit in with his physical parameters for that position. You got to be 6'4", or he's not offering you. Caden is not 6'4". Caden's listed at 6'3". Caden's not 6'3". Caden's probably 6'1.5", to be honest with you. I know he looks big, but in person, he is not 6'3" for sure. And Kirby didn't offer him. Dude is a hell of a football player. I think Mello, let us know. Mello from down there. I think he was the Gwinnett County Player of the Year, and clearly just an excellent football player. And what I love is when you see these guys like Tyleek, like K-Mac, the dudes with the big bellies, and you just don't think they can be twitchy. Tyleek is the twitchiest of all those defensive linemen. He is so quick. And I just love guys like that. But Caden McDonald is going to be a fan favorite moving forward for the next couple of years. I just absolutely love him. SEC power rankings, guys. I got Alabama number 1. And I think that they're the only team in the SEC that I don't like the matchup against the Buckeyes. And that's just because currently we're not playing great at linebacker, and Milroe looks so dynamic running the ball. So that is the only matchup that gives me pause. Number 2, I got Tennessee. Number 3, I got Texas. I'm really high on Tennessee. Texas, this is another one where I just feel like the Buckeyes match up well against Texas. Both Tennessee and Texas are very similar to me. They got some nice skill position players. They got quarterbacks who are very efficient, and they got coaches who I trust to get the job done. But I just think the Bucks match up well with them. Number 4, I got Georgia. We've seen it all year. They're just not up to their normal standard. I don't see them playing with a lot of confidence. I don't see them coming together. I don't feel like Kirby's got the power to rein this team in like he usually does. I just don't see it. They're just not very explosive anywhere. And Carson Beck, I think, is overrated. Number 5, I got Mississippi. Ole Miss. I'm so happy to see Lane Kiffin lose. I just can't stand the guy. And number 6, I've got Missouri. This Missouri team is not very impressive. They're heading into Texas A&M. They're an underdog heading into Texas A&M. They're the number 6 ranked team in the country heading into Texas A&M. Boy, does Vegas respect A&M so much. Remember, they were the favorites against Notre Dame early on. They just got a ton of respect for A&M. I don't. I don't know who I'm going to pick that game, but it should be a pretty good one. It's probably going to be one of the best games of the slate we got this week. Number 7, I've got Kentucky. That South Carolina loss, where South Carolina came into Kentucky and just absolutely stomped them, is now just looking more and more puzzling. Kentucky has a terrible offense, but the defense is excellent. They're playing together. I'm a fan of Mark Stoops. I don't think the guy gets enough credit, and he's an Ohio dude, so I kind of root for them a little bit. Number 8, LSU. LSU has not been great on defense. Blake Baker came in for Missouri, the defensive coordinator. I thought that he would be able to kind of make them quite a bit better really quick, and he's not. And for some reason, they can't run the ball with supposedly the best offensive line in the country. Not a very impressive team. I feel like this is an LSU team that's going to kind of quit and stumble down the end, lose some stupid games. We've seen this happen so many times with them. That's just the type of program they are, really. Up, down, up, down. They're like Auburn, but slightly better. Number 9, Oklahoma. The offensive line is absolute trash. The quarterback's a true freshman, though he looks like he's going to be pretty good. The defense looks really good, but, this is not a very good Oklahoma team. I'm not a believer in Brent Venables. Joe Castiglione just signed him to, I don't know how many years, but they really believe in him there. We'll see, man. We'll see. They got a rough way to go, I think. And number 10, South Carolina. South Carolina hosts Ole Miss this week, and I believe South Carolina can beat them, and that would be pretty fantastic. The Big Ten and the SEC, guys, we all know where this is going at some point. Mika says Kirby has bigger problems in football. There's no doubt about that. Dave thinks the Bama secondary can be exploited. They lost 2 cornerbacks and downs from last year. They got 3 5-star youngsters, and they definitely got some young talent. But yeah, I agree with you. Stu says, just remember, Texas spanked Bama in their own backyard as recently as last year. They absolutely did. I feel what DeBoer has done this year with Milroe in particular, I think they're so much better than they were last year. I don't know what you guys think, but I definitely feel like this is a really, really good Bama team. Mello says Kirby really does use height as a requirement. Yeah, he really does. Yeah, I wasn't messing around. Like, if you don't fit in these parameters, you're not even on the board. Like, they don't care. You're not on the board. You're not even a consideration. They have certain heights and weights for every position, and you just pass on so many good football players when you have that. I just don't. It seems so lazy to me, to be honest. It seems like a very lazy way to go about things. Oh, pardon me, Shepard. Mizzou rated 9th. Did I said 6th. Where are they at? Let's pull that top 25 up here. Yeah, Mizzou 9th. Why did I say 6th? Where is A&M? Is A&M even? Yeah, A&M not even ranked. But A&M, the favorite to win that game. So we've known what the SEC and the Big Ten are up to, and we got to have this rather boring conversation, right? I don't think it's particularly interesting, but it affects us a lot, right? No matter who you root for. If we had, like, I don't know, stopped watching college football like 5 years ago and tuned back in, like, so many things have changed. Conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL, schools are soon going to be playing players, the 12-team playoff, and the biggest change yet is going to be the Big Ten and the SEC essentially becoming Division I of college football. That's what I believe. They're going to totally control college football, the entire postseason format, and they're laying some more cards on the table. So back in February, the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and the Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti formed a Big Ten SEC joint advisory group. That group is going to be meeting real soon in Nashville, Tennessee. It's going to include all the university presidents, the chancellors, and the athletic directors. And man, would I love to be a fly on the wall of that meeting. But they have announced what they're expecting to discuss. We know that the current playoff format goes through just next year. So the Big Ten and the SEC are going to need to get on the same page as to what they want for what that next format's going to look like. Now, we already know that they want to go from 12 to 14 teams. Basically, all of college football wants that. Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, wants more guaranteed bids for the SEC and the Big Ten. The number being floated is 4 guaranteed for the SEC, 4 for the Big Ten. And if we're being honest, with 14 teams, that doesn't really seem like a big ask to me to have 4 for each of those 2 leagues. I've criticized these two for really flexing their muscles, and in the last kind of agreement, or the last sit down they had with everybody, they were kind of being like petulant children, like we'll take our ball and go home type of deal with their demands. And they can be, that's the position that they're in, but they don't need to be. They don't care about anything else. Like, it's pretty clear where they're going and where they want to go. But if we look at the top 25 this week, as we just did, the top 14 teams, there are 12 of the top 14 that are Big Ten or SEC. 7 SEC, 5 Big Ten, 1 ACC, and Notre Dame. Not even a single Big 12 team in the top 14, let alone a group of 5 who gets an automatic bid. So there's a lot of things I agree with this joint advisory group as to what this playoff should look like moving forward. Other things that are slated to be discussed: a future scheduling partnership between the Big Ten and the SEC. And the only thing that could potentially stop this from happening is if the SEC refuses to play that 9th conference game. Big Ten plays 9, SEC plays 8, as we know. And there are a lot of ADs in the Big Ten where this is a big sticking point. If you want to play with us and you guys want to do this, like, this needs to be even Steven. Like, you can't play 8 conference games. We play 9 and then expect us to have this scheduling agreement with you. So the SEC is going to need to do that. And I sure hope they do, because I definitely want this cross scheduling of the Big Ten and the SEC early in the season. This year, what do we see? Michigan, Texas, USC, LSU, Wisconsin, Alabama. Like, those games got huge numbers. In the next 6 years, we know what the Buckeye schedule is. We got home and homes with Texas, Alabama, Georgia. That's 6 years of scheduling. Those games are going to be huge on a national scale. Everybody around the country wants to see them. They're just enormous. And these guys are no dummies. That's a huge moneymaker for them. They want this agreement to go through. And I want more great games. So they're going to sit down, try and negotiate this, and raise the value of their inventory when they go negotiate TV contracts. You do that by taking those 3 out of conference games that everybody has in the beginning of the season and making bigger matchups between the SEC and the Big Ten. Everybody wins. So that's really awesome. What's not announced that's going to be discussed yet is the automatic bids for, or the automatic buys for. So right now, the top 4 conference champions get the automatic bye, which means the Big 12 and the ACC get an automatic bye. And not all conferences are created equal. Obviously, giving the Big 12 an automatic bye when they don't even have a team ranked in the top 14 is just ridiculous. We look at the Big 12 this year, it's an absolute shambles. If you look at the best teams in the Big 12, who was favored to win the conference? You had Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Kansas were the top 4. They've all lost a conference game already. Kansas has lost 3 games. The league's kind of in shambles. And you're saying that one of these teams is going to be ranked 4 in the playoffs, get an automatic bye in the playoffs, and then come out. Like, it's just absurd. Let's think about who the number 5 team is going to be in that playoff system. It's going to be either like an Oregon or a Georgia or a Texas or a Tennessee. And that team is going to have to play in the first round, while a team like, I don't know, Kansas State gets a bye. Kansas State just lost 38-9 to BYU 2 weeks ago. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And they haven't discussed that they're going to talk about that, but I assume that they will. Now, if you go to 14 teams, I think what's going to happen is the top 2 teams are going to be the only ones who get buys. And it's going to be automatically the Big Ten and the SEC. So they haven't announced that that's what they're going for with this 14 team, but I do think that that's what makes the most sense with that 14 team breakdown. But the other thing they haven't discussed is the group of 5 team. And I have just firmly believed that the group of 5 team should absolutely be included in the playoff if they're ranked in the top 14 in this scenario, or 12 in the current 12 team scenario. I just don't understand why anybody would want to be included in this thing when they're just going to get destroyed instead of having their own playoff. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. The best group of 5 teams this year are Boise State and UNLV. UNLV plays Syracuse Friday. They are slightly favored over Syracuse, but I think Syracuse is going to win the game. Boise State, they're pretty good this year. They've already lost to Oregon. They can't do anything in the playoffs. They're not going to be ranked in the top 12. I don't understand why they're included. And this is something that I really hope changes, because they're leaving out a team. Honestly, what they're doing is they're making a game for us that we got to watch in the first round that we know is a throwaway game. Like, when we look at the games that are going to be played in the first round this year, we know that the game that includes the group of 5 team is basically, it's going to be the least watched game. It's going to be a blowout. It's going to be like Liberty and in Oregon last year in that bowl game. And it's just garbage. It's a garbage game. And you're leaving out somebody like, I think it was last year, would have been, I think it would have been Penn State would have been left out last year in this scenario. So this is something they haven't said they're going to talk about. I really hope they do. Curious to know what you guys think about all that. But it's clear. We know where we're going. These two are taking over. They want this to be a Big Ten, SEC, ACC, NFC. This is going to be an NFL model at some point. And that's where we're going. Now, I don't necessarily I didn't want any of this. I didn't want to lose the Pac-12. I didn't want to lose regional football. But now that we've lost it, and now that we've expanded, I would rather just hit the fast forward button and get to where we're going instead of having all the growing pains in between. Like, I would rather just get there so we can just be set. Okay, this is what we're going to do, instead of this changing every 2 years. It drives me insane. But I'm an old man curmudgeon now, so that is to be expected. Dave says, Bama offensively, really, really good. Good morning, Scooch. Scooch says Bama's defense has a lot of holes. Absolutely, it does. It absolutely does. We can score on them. We can score on either of them. No doubt about it. The Buckeyes offense can score on anybody. I'm positive of that. Mello agrees with me here that he's been trying to tell the Georgia Spaces that Carson was overrated and foolish for coming back. Is anybody with me that it is so strange when you look at Carson Beck, when you listen to him talk, that he is that he's a guy that went out and got a sleeve this offseason and bought a Lamborghini? Like, it just doesn't fit his personality to me. Jay doesn't think Milroe is NFL good and he won't last there. I mean, honestly, I felt the same way about Lamar. You know what I mean? Like, I really did. I used to say Lamar couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and he couldn't at Louisville. Like, I think Milroe's a better passer than him already, by far. You know what I mean? I have a hard time trying to predict that. Also, like, who would have ever predicted that Anthony Richardson, while watching him at Florida, would have been drafted as high as he is? How is he doing, guys? I know that a lot of people were excited about him. I don't watch the NFL anymore. Rod says we're seeing the struggles of Kiffin and Riley on defense and Venables on offense. Yeah. I mean, just basically like we'd all expect, right? Sage thinks Rotgut will beat Nebraska. Jay's still of the opinion that Oregon and Ohio State rematch in the title game, which is pretty much everybody's thought in the very beginning of the year. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like Penn State is maybe a little bit better than I gave him credit for. Speaking of Nebraska, so we talked a lot about the Friday games and the Big Ten not wanting to play these Friday games. Well, Nebraska hosted Illinois a couple weeks ago on the Friday game. It was their 400th sellout, and that's a streak that Nebraska is really proud of. So proud that they have had boosters for years buy up piles of tickets to keep that thing going. And I don't know how much it really means when you have artificially kept it going like that. And I don't mean to knock their fan base. I think they're an awesome fan base, but that's just kind of nonsense to me when you're buying up the tickets to make sure you keep the streak going. But they're a great fan base. In fact, in the 2024 JUCK on Bucks fan base superlatives, they won the nicest fan base in college football. Almost awkwardly nice when you go there, how welcoming they are. But much like Ohio Stadium, Beaver Stadium, Michigan Stadium, Memorial Stadium in Nebraska is a massive venue, 90,000 seats, and a huge tailgate scene. We've talked a lot about these Friday night games and how the Big Ten does not want them. And one of the reasons that they don't want them is because you're trying to have school on Friday and you've got all of the tailgate scene and all of the fans bearing down on campus while you're trying to have school. And then everybody's trying to get out from class. So Nebraska had to basically shut down school on Friday, and they didn't like that. Now, we've heard a lot of ADs in the Big Ten say that they don't want this. Michigan AD Warde Manuel straight up said, we are not going to play on Friday. The way that they decided who was going to play these games is it was the fourth best game in the Big Ten. And it's going to be a rare occasion you're going to see Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State playing in the fourth most desirable game. Like, you would have to be bad for several years to have that little of a draw. Like, Michigan would have to lose 5 games 6 years in a row. You know what I mean? Like, you'd have to be bad before you would drop down. But now that you've got more good teams in the Big Ten, right? Now that you've added USC and you've added Oregon, it makes it more likely that you might drop down to the fourth best. In the old format, not so much. So it's probably going to be tested at some point here soon by Michigan or Ohio State. But I'm curious to see what happens with them if Warde Manuel's even around much longer. If he's going to put his foot down and say no, like, what's going to happen? He's saying straight up, we're not going to do it. And the Big Ten's saying you're going to do it. But going to be interesting. But Nebraska, their AD has come out and said after this game Friday night, look, we don't want to do this at Nebraska anymore. So you've got all these schools absolutely hate this Friday night game. Meanwhile, they've gotten huge numbers. That Nebraska-Illinois game was massive. I think it got like 4.3 million. And not so much last week, probably, with Rutgers, Washington going against the Miami, Virginia Tech game. But a heck of a game nonetheless. But Nebraska's AD came out and he made it clear to Tony Petitti that Nebraska does not want to participate in these Friday night games anymore. They certainly don't want to host these Friday night games anymore, except for the one Friday night game every other year, the day after Thanksgiving, when they play Iowa. But he also wanted to say, I don't think any program should have the power to say that we're not going to do it. So basically, he was humble in his request and called out Warde Manuel indirectly, which I thought was hilarious. So this is going to come to a head at some point, and I think it's really funny because the Big Ten made a big cash grab doing this, and they got some unhappy customers here. Not customers. I'm a happy customer, a conflicted customer, because I like this Friday, for instance. Who do we got? Anybody got the slate? Who the heck do we got this Friday on? We've got Oregon and Michigan State. The Duck Knight says Boise State blew out Wazoo. Duck Knight, what time does it get dark in Eugene this time of year? Also, how do you feel about Michigan State? So Michigan State, Oregon is this Friday night. How do you feel about Michigan State coming in after watching them play against Ohio State? So we've got that game Friday night, and we've also got Syracuse UNLV, which is taking on a bit of interest now, with UNLV potentially being the group of 5 team that makes the playoffs. Like, they're in really good position. And by the way, guys, Ashton Genty, Dane Bugler came out and he said that he's got Ashton Genty as the player who had, or the running back who has broken the most tackles of any running back he's ever seen. He said he's absolutely unbelievable. I thought I had a video loaded up. So he put out 5 videos. This kid's just ridiculous. Duck Knight says 24-point favorite sounds about right. Michigan State is decent. Yeah, I tell you, they surprised a lot of us. $6:00. All right, so 6:00 it gets dark. The game starts 4:30. All right, so the second half should be nice and dark. I like that. I like that a lot. Second half, Ohio State, Oregon will be very dark. Are you guys excited about wearing the blacks? Like, do you guys get jazzed up about wearing black like the Ohio State crew does? Most of Buckeye Nation loves when we wear the black. Mika hates college football on Friday. It takes away from high school football. That's where I was going. So there are games that I'm interested in this Friday night, college football games. There's also a huge game, high school football game, Walsh, Hoban. My brother called me last night. He's like, you want to go? Chris is going. And I want to go. But I also want to watch these games because, like, I talk about college football on a show. I feel like it's kind of a responsibility to watch games. I also want to. You know what I mean? Dave says, wagering on NFL games and fantasy football are the only reasons to watch the NFL for me. My Browns suck. My Browns suck as well. But to be honest with you, like, I haven't really watched much of the Browns at all this year, even though they do suck. And usually that's not the case. We got some visitors, guys. We got some visitors. Today's recruiting news. Number 1, and this is really, really good. So Adam Guthrie, 6'7", 295-pound lineman from Miami Trace High School, heading to the shoe for the Iowa game. Guthrie just got the Clemson offer. I think that this is the weekend Adam Guthrie gets his offer. I really do. We've also got, heading into town, Brady Edmonds. Brady Edmonds is the absolute, I think he's going to be the number 1 quarterback of the class of 2027. And he is the reason why I'm not concerned at all about taking a project quarterback in the class of 2026. The dude's awesome. And by the way, his grandfather, he grew up an Ohio State fan because his grandfather is from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, which is right there. And that's excellent for us. In his goals, when he was like 12 years old, one of his goals that he's carried around, like on his Apple Watch or on his phone or something, is be the starting quarterback at Ohio State. His name is Brady. He's visiting Michigan as well. And some folks are concerned because he's named after Tom Brady. But the Tom Brady connection is because the dad is from Boston. It has nothing to do with the Michigan connection. Let's just make that clear right now. So got those two. And Will Conroy from St. Ignatius will also be in town to see the Iowa game. And he's really looking forward to seeing how the offensive line blocks against that offensive front. And oh my gosh, you got to see this picture. So, Dave says he's a traditionalist with uniforms. Yeah, as am I. Shepherd Ducks. I can't tell you how trash this game time is at 6 p.m. on a Friday. What the hell are we doing? It takes 2 hours from Portland to get to Eugene. I-5 is going to be a disaster. So you guys got the game on at 6. He's talking about Michigan State. And I think what they're trying to do is they want the rest of us on the East Coast to see the game, even starting at 9. Plus, you got to factor in, bro, like Michigan State, like you know, they're in our time zone. So if you started the game any later than, like, they're already starting it at 9, you don't want to have a team start their home game much later than that. You know what I mean? I mean, I get it. It definitely sucks for you. I Am Leaving says Gabriel is going to look like an ant in the black uniforms. The Duck Knight says Ginty's on pace for 2,700 yards, 39 touchdowns. That's crazy. General Chrome, will Fry finally offer Guthrie? Yes, I do believe he gets offered this week. I'm fairly confident about it. And the long-awaited Go Black Tigers, Cuyahoga Falls Black Tigers. Rod says, I love when Sparty wore those green chrome helmets like 10 years ago. They've had some really interesting alts and some really, really bad ones as well. Some really, really bad ones. I wanted to show you guys this. So Rock Hill from Hoban, the number 1 cornerback in the country, released his top 10. Tell me I loaded up this picture, Juck. I didn't load up this picture. Well, it'll have to wait till tomorrow. No, I got to have the picture. I'm not even going to tell you the story without the picture because it's awesome. Jay says, do we all think Ohio State is better than Oregon currently? I do. I'm with Dave here. I don't think that like I used to in the off season, I thought that this game, and I think most people thought, in fact, I think most people were picking in the off season Ohio State to lose that game in Eugene in a close one. And I think that most people thought on a neutral field, Ohio State was probably a 1-point favorite, but at Eugene, they're the dog and they're going to lose. Now, I don't know what the line is currently, and I don't know what it'll be after next week, but if I was setting the line right now, I would probably say Ohio State -6, which would mean on a neutral field, to me, 10. They usually say 3 points for home field advantage. I think Autzon's worth another. So I think Ohio State's about a 10-point favorite as these teams currently stand. Could be way off, but that's the vibe I get. And I've watched every snap of Oregon and every snap of Ohio State this year so far. Kyle says Oregon struggled against lesser competition, where Ohio State has blown out lesser competition. Mika says we should do another question to get a free Juckeye shirt again. Okay. Jeez, guys. I don't know. Okay, let's do this. First person in the chat I got nothing. I got nothing, Mika. These are things I got to plan ahead. Better clean up our linebacker play early in games. Well, there's no doubt about that. And I do think they will. I've talked enough about that this week before I start getting people getting mad at me. You know what I mean? I hate to come off as negative. It's just the thing is when your standards are, you want to be a 10-2 team, talk about your team in a different way. You know what I mean? Like people say to me, like, it'll be fine or he'll be fine. Like, yes, fine for sure. Fine isn't the standard, man. We listened to the defensive coordinator come on. What's he say? The standard is perfection. And why is the standard perfection? Because if the standard is perfection, you always have something to work on because you'll never attain it, right?
And that's the way I analyze the team. Like every little thing that's wrong, what are they going to do to try to fix it, to address it? And sometimes that can come off as negative. But the fact of the matter is, we're grading this team, this Buckeyes team, against the very best teams in the country. So I'm looking at those teams, watching them, breaking them down, looking at the Buckeyes, breaking them down. And I want our team to be better than theirs. And to be there are things that need fixed throughout a season. And those are the things I'm looking at. So that can sometimes come off as negative, but like I don't want to ever hear like something will be fine. Like that's fine for you if you want to be 10-2, or maybe you want to win the Big Ten. Like for me, I'm trying to win a national championship here. So being fine doesn't cut it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry if that comes off as negative, but that's just my mentality. Rod says quick screens and slants will be their plan. No doubt. 100%. Shepard says on the books he's seen, and it might be different on some, he's seen the Buckeyes favored by 1, which to me would be on a neutral field 5, I think. We got to factor this in, and this is a great point by General Crum. So he thought James would have the linebackers playing a little better by now. I think Chrome, that sometimes we forget James is he's a little bit green too. You know what I mean? So he's definitely a stud. And I do think he's going to be the best linebackers coach in the country, but he's a little bit green as well. Bucks Forever 65 says Iowa can be thrown on very easily. They don't have a good secondary. The secondary they're used to, and running in them will be a challenge. Brad says Arvell and Gabe are shockingly good this early. They definitely both play the position very naturally. You know what I mean? But Gabe's year 3. Hey, Jeff, good morning, Jeff. Jeff says Bama's secondary is trash and won't be able to cover our receivers. This is kind of how I feel, Colton. Colton doesn't think James has the right personnel or his guys. And if we look at this linebacker room, we certainly thought that, I don't know if everybody felt this way, but I thought that Sonny would, pick this up really quick and show all the things that Arvell is showing. Like that's what I thought was coming from Sonny. And it could be that I've just overinflated his athleticism or his twitchiness over the years because I've been such a big fan of his. And then you look at CJ, he's definitely not picked this up naturally. And neither of those guys really played this position in high school, so it shouldn't be so shocking, right? And then you look at Cody, great natural linebacker. Cody played a great game against Michigan State. And yeah, the personnel, it's not what it's gonna be. We'll put it that way. You look at TJ Alford, you look at Eli Lee, and of course Pettijohn. Like these dudes can't get here fast enough. I mean, these are natural linebackers, all 3 of them, absolute linebacker studs. So the recruiting, the pieces, like I tend to agree with what you're saying there. The Duck Knight says you can't reveal your whole playbook against Cupcakes, and he is insinuating that Oregon is holding a lot back for the Buckeyes, which probably right. Jay says, but can our secondary cover Williams and stop Jam Miller and Milrow from taking off? It's a lot to stop. It's a hell of an offense. You're going to give up points. You got to outscore them. You know what I mean? You absolutely have to outscore them. Every 6 days, Mika. Every 6, because 7 is 1 day too long. I'm weird like that. I'm totally with you, Kyle. So Kyle says the COVID year is irrelevant in my opinion. I don't even, when I'm running stats, I totally kick it out. I don't count it for anything. Nobody's personal stats. Like I don't like none of it. Everybody played different amounts of games. Like I don't want to hear about any of it. Joe makes a great point. Joe says, I don't want to hear Oregon held anything back when Boise had them on the ropes. And that is a really good point. Like you're not about to lose a game and you're saying, well, we got to hold some things back. We don't want to show some things because we're going to be playing Ohio State this year. That's a great point. And that's the other thing, Scooch. We get a lot of crap for losing to that Bama team when the fact is that 2020 Alabama team was going to abuse every other team in college football in that national championship game. And it's just one of those props to them type of deals. Like, yeah, they had it like that. They were that good. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? What are you going to do? So, all right, my friends, I appreciate you all so much for joining me. Please do like the video and subscribe. I would very much appreciate that. And check out my sponsor, ColumbusApparelCo.com. You can find all your Juck on Bucks gear. Tomorrow, I will get a question for Mika upon Mika's suggestion for a free Buckeye shirt, which thank you for bringing that up. And you can find anything you want, Columbus or Ohio, at ColumbusApparelCo.com. But what they really specialize in is screen printing. They're excellent at it, and you can use the code JUCK20 to get any of your screen printing done. It's way better, and it's going to be cheaper than any of these things you're going to find on Google. Trust me, I've been through them. I've used them all, about 12 different companies, and there's always something wrong. These guys will make sure it's right. You only get one shot with custom printing, So take your time, go to ColumbusApparelCo.com, and please like the video and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Juck on Bucks out.